folks think we're really attractive.
Warren and Lewis are 18-month-old boys with their whole lives ahead of them. It would be nice to think that they have the potential to be many things. Are the rates at which they'll age, who they'll be attracted to, and the things they'll fear already pre-programmed? Studies of identical twins allow us to estimate for each of these things whether it's nature or nurture that really matters. Identical twins are fascinating to look at, but they're also interesting because they tell us so much about ourselves. Whether it's acne or migraine, or even down to such trivial things like how much television we watch, the study of twins reveals complex insights into the ways in which our lives are influenced by our genes. Don't you want that? Want this one? No? All right. But with identical twins, nothing's straightforward. For example, the most obvious thing about them is that physically they're very similar. So you'd expect identical twins to have identical fingerprints.
Try this one.
So these are the fingerprints from the middle finger of Warren's left hand and from Lewis's left hand. And what you can see is that they both show roughly the same structure. There's a loop and there's a delta formation, a kind of triangle. On Warren's print, the loop and delta are next to each other. On Lewis's, there's a gap between them. What this shows is that no two people, however identical, mate the same pattern. And as we'll discover later, that fact plays a crucial role in the story of Fred, doing life in jail for a crime he claims his identical twin said committed. We'll also be looking into what can be learned by scanning the brains of identical twins, and the dramatic effects that the womb environment has on a child's height and intelligence. Because it's in the womb that it all begins.
We're not wearing them.
We went out one night and we looked very similar, and this guy just said to me, "Oh, so where did you meet Helen?" It's like in the womb. She's my twin.
I'm not going to wear it identical to you.
So I think we were about 6 or 7, as early as that. And my mum said, what would happen if Sarah decided to move to America and her career takes her there, or your career takes you somewhere? It's like, no, it I'm wouldn't. In the suitcase, you know, drop everything. You couldn't go anywhere. I mean, she can go like, I can go like 3 hours or 4 hours without seeing or speaking to her. But that's about it. Not bloody miles and miles away. Yeah. No way.
Okay, good evening, ladies. Are you on a guest list?
Yeah, we are. Sarah and Helen.
We're used now to the idea that twins have remarkably similar tastes and personalities. So it's surprising to find that there's one fundamental and very basic thing over which twins differ. Sarah and Helen are out on a Friday night. But one thing's for sure, they won't be competing for the same man.
Our taste in men is very different. Sarah tends to go for the good lookers, whereas I go for more personality. Then that's debatable. Yeah. Well, you don't go for the oil painting.
No, I don't, because it's not important.
In fact, identical twins rarely fancy, or even particularly like, the other one's partner. Even more surprising, the partners in turn don't often get on with the other twin.
My ex-boyfriend couldn't stand Sarah, didn't even like the look of her. I mean, what
She's
does that
my
say?
identical twin sister, and he hated her, couldn't stand her. Oh, it was a nightmare. It was a complete nightmare. He tried really hard with you.
I tried really hard with him.
Biologically speaking, this could make sense. If we were genetically programmed to fancy a particular type of person, our choices would be dramatically limited. We'd wait around to meet Mr. or Mrs. Right, and that might never happen.
But Helen kind of, she's very domineering in relationships, whereas I'm a bit more of the kind of easygoing. I just think my relationships are more easygoing than what yours are.
Yeah.
Because you
They're
do
boring.
No.
Your relationships are boring.
Helen
Mine
tends
aren't.
to find men.
Mine are
and
eventful.
Helen tends to find men and then manage to change what they wear, how they look. And it's like, well, why didn't you find someone initially that was that way instead of taking them through this great big drama in their life and dumping them? You know?
A recent study of 1,000 twins and their partners concluded that though we tend to be attracted to people like ourselves, ultimately our choice of mate is pretty random, which means there's some hope for all of us. Identical twins start out as a bizarre accident. As with the rest of us, when sperm meets egg, a unique individual is formed. But then, something remarkable happens. The single developing embryo splits to form two identical people. It's not surprising, since they started out as one person, that twins often grow up inseparable. Now, Jane and Joan love being twins, but they're worried. Their faces are aging, and aging at different rates.
We've come to New York to participate in a study on the aging process of identical twins. And this is going to entail some plastic surgery.
May we remind you that many bags look exactly alike. Okay.
Well, as far as we know, the plastic surgery will involve removing the lines on the side of the face by pulling the skin back through here, doing some liposuction under the chin and tightening up under the chin, and also reducing some of the wrinkles under the eyes.
Hey, great news! Are you making me money? Well, did you trade me? What'd you buy?
We've been working together for many, many years, and we're looking at each other all day long. We feel you're almost looking in a mirror. And by the end of the day, after a very stressful day, even though you're still well made up and have your lipstick on and your hair is still combed, you certainly look older at the end of the day and tired. And it's time to look fresher and more with it again.
Long life tends to run in families, and twin research certainly supports the idea that the rate at which we age is partly determined by our genes. But lifestyle clearly plays a big part in how wrinkly or leathery we get.
If one considers it, there's a competition that comes into play that if she's going to look better than me, then I'm going to have to do the same thing because I don't want her to look better than me. Would you agree? I never even think of that. Come on, you must. You don't at all? No. I never think of that.
Jane and Joan are putting themselves in the hands of leading plastic surgeon Dr. Derek Antel.
I've always been fascinated by twins. I think that everyone has an innate interest in twins. And in my own particular field, people would always say to me, Dr. Antel, how long will my facelift last? And I used to say, if you had an identical twin and you had the surgery and your twin did not, forever you would look about 8 years younger than your identical twin, but you'd both continue to age.
Studying twins has provided Dr. Antel with an interesting way of doubling his income.
At this point, I've done more facelifts than anyone else in the world on identical twins.
Dr. Antel also uses twins to study the effects of the environment on faces. Both these twins love the sun, but the one on the left spent rather more time in it.
She has more lines around her mouth, very deep wrinkles from a lot of sun exposure. These lines right here tend to be from squinting.
These twins are even more revealing. The twin on the left is much more wrinkly. She is also a heavy smoker, which her twin is not. It's certainly a dramatic example of how smoking ages skin. But studying faces is just the first part. Dr. Antel's surgery not only makes twins look younger, but more alike again.
In the twins that look different, where there have been significant lifestyle choices, what we did is we tried to bring them back in balance so that they would maintain their twinness. Joan, who is on the near slide, closer to me, has had more sun exposure. You can see more lines around her forehead, around her face. She's also a little bit heavier than her sister, Jane.
We looked at this as kind of an odyssey. Meeting with Dr. Antel was really very, very interesting, and being accepted into this study was very exciting, and we're really looking forward to it.
In a few days, Jane and Joan will have their surgery and fulfill their heartfelt desire to look as one again.
Have one last treat, should we? No, we'll go. No, we better not.
Now I have to confess to a phobia. I'm terrified of spiders.
It's not an overwhelming fear, but the idea of picking one up makes my hands sweat, my pulse race, and my stomach churn. I always assumed that my phobia was because I found a huge spider in my bed when I was just 3, a moment that's always haunted me. Sarah and Helen share my fear.
Started off young, didn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't help with my father being completely petrified of anything that moved that wasn't on 2 legs. So that didn't really help.
Dad's a big, strong man, and, you know, to see him kind of petrified of something so small.
Yeah, and mice as well. Anything that would move, he'd just be like
a girl.
Yeah.
Just like total pansy.
But was it their dad's genes or his behavior which triggered their fear? Surprisingly enough, a tendency to be phobic can be inherited. Research on separated identical twins has shown that they often have phobias, but not necessarily the same ones. This tends to prove that you can have a genetic predisposition to phobia, but what you become phobic to may be environmentally triggered. It's an accident waiting to happen.
Keep them close, right?
Despite the genetic basis of phobias, you can often overcome them. Phobias, particularly ones like a fear of spiders, are actually very treatable. Sarah and Helen have opted for a short course of hypnotherapy with Robert Farrago.
Finger here. Now touch your forehead, close your eyes. Ready? 1, 2, 3, sleep.
What do they do? I've never seen him catch a fly.
So begin by letting this very simple idea sink deep into your mind. Spiders are safe.
Could never touch a spider.
No.
So what do you think of that spider?
After 20 minutes of hypnotherapy, Sarah and Helen are introduced to a tiny house spider.
Can you do me a favor and just put your finger like right there? Yeah, actually, if you come down onto the floor here next to it, just come off the chair. Do you want to give that a try? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, take your time. You'll be all right. Yeah, go on. You'll do it. There you go. You did it. What? You did it. Well done. You don't have to like it. You just have to live with them, right?
But that wasn't the real challenge.
Okay. Tell me something, John. Have you actually worked with people who are frightened of spiders before?
Lots of times, yes.
Just stay where you are and let them describe the spider to you.
She's an absolute sweetie, and there's no way in this world that this spider would hurt you. Can I come a little bit? Please, please don't. Please, please don't. It really is not going to hurt you. Just take your courage. You can do it. And it won't even move. But don't prod it. Just stroke it. Because she's beautiful.
That's debatable.
Go on. You can do it. Very gently.
And you'll take it away if
Yes,
you do it?
don't prod it, don't poke it, just very gently stroke its abdomen. And it's gone. Stroke it.
I've done it.
Well done, well done.
So, not a total result, but do you feel better after that?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're more capable of handling the situation?
Yeah, I feel that I could deal with it a bit better than I normally would have.
Okay. Same goes for you?
Yeah.
Right.
I would never have touched the spider. I wouldn't have.
And you did.
Yeah.
Well done.
And one I touched is a hell of a lot bigger than the one you touched. Believe me.
So, Robert, the result for you?
Well, I have to confess I share Helen and Sarah's misgivings, but, you know, I must prove that it's possible to overcome this primeval fear of spiders. And so I'm going to hold this thing now, and I'm going to stroke it. It is a very, very beautiful animal. But I don't know. I'm not sure that I'd be able to manage a house spider as well. Twins are at the heart of one of the oldest and most politically sensitive fights in science. Some people argue that intelligence and personality are largely inherited, the product of the genes we were born with. Others passionately believe that it's experience, family values, and education which really make us what we are. Identical twins are used to score points. Funnily enough, it's sometimes the differences between identical twins that are most revealing. Corey and Eric are, believe it or not, identical twins. Yet Eric is much bigger than his brother Corey and has been since he was born. Seen with their older brother Tyler, you'd think they were three brothers of different ages.
He's bigger than him. And I'm bigger than him. And my head's bigger than Corey's. He doesn't like when I punch him. I love, he'll punch me right now.
Corey and Eric shared a womb, but Corey got less nutrition in the womb than his brother Eric, and that's why he came out smaller. In fact, the effects of being malnourished as a fetus can persist well into adulthood. At Louisville University, they've been studying twins for over 40 years. Hundreds of twins have passed through here.
And Eric, you can stand right next to him, right there, okay? Okay.
Corey and Eric have been visiting the university since they were born. Here, they are regularly weighed, measured, and they have their IQ tested.
Other than the fact that one of them is taller than the other one, they're as much alike as any pair of identical twins for the basic building blocks: intelligence, personality, and temperament that we see in any of these pairs.
Studies consistently show that the biggest single factor in determining our intelligence is our genes. But environmental influences such as food, parents, schooling, and general welfare can still have an important stunting or stimulating effect. When Corey was first tested, he was not only shorter than Eric, he also had a lower IQ. Both twins got lots of stimulation, both at home and at the institute. Corey's IQ score rose fast, Eric's didn't. Now they have very similar scores. What research here has shown is that intelligence is like height. If you don't feed or stimulate a child enough, then they'll be stunted. Having educated parents will help you reach your genetic potential because educated parents tend to stimulate children.
So if you want to make a prediction about a twin's intelligence by the time they reach their adult years, your best prediction can be made on the basis of how far the mother and the father went to school.
But equally, it seems, you can't make children taller or smarter than they are programmed to be. Like sporting ability, Intelligence can certainly be nurtured, but unless it's already in the genes, playing your baby Mozart in the womb is not going to make it into a genius. Back in New York, identical twins Jane and Joan are about to be made even more identical.
What we're going to do today is we're going to tighten up the face, the neck, and we're going to work on the lower eyelids. Certainly one of the goals of the surgery is to maintain your twinness, to make you look as much alike as we possibly can. We're going to bring you back into balance to maintain the twinness.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, the shark babe has such teeth, dear, and it shows them pearly white, just a jackknife.
The difficult thing in operating on identical twins is you basically have to carry the operation out 4 times. And you want to do it in a reproducible way.
You know when that shark bites with his teeth, babe, scarlet billows.
The first thing Dr. Antel does is to use liposuction to make Joan's face slimmer, more like Jane's.
So there's never a trace of red.
People ask if we work on them at the same time, and we don't. We do one and then the other. I usually do them in birth order, so the twin that was born first, usually minutes before her sister or brother, is done first.
Round the corner, could that...
I'm sitting here, I'm in the waiting room waiting for my turn. Yep. Everything's going well. They've done the chin and the under the eyes.
Joan?
Don't get up just yet. We want you to still sit here for a minute.
Everything's fine. Just relax, okay? Surgery's all done. You look terrific.
There's a tugboat down by the river, don't you know, where a cement bag just drooping on down. Oh, that cement is just, it's there for the weight to dare.
Just as the day goes on, always we sort of joke about it. The second side takes less and the second twin takes less.
Just compare this with 3 weeks from now. I'm trying to smile.
It's your baby sister.
Hey. Oh, I'm glad it's over, but it was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, there's a lot of discomfort, but no severe pain. The doctors were wonderful. I can't say enough good things. I'm just anxious to see the results. How do you feel, Jane? Can you talk?
Jane and Joan are about to start 3 weeks of convalescence.
I have absolutely no regrets, and I would turn around and go back in and do it again. I'm very excited.
Thank you, ladies.
Jane and Joan are striving to overcome the effects of aging with, we hope, good results. And in the case of aging, it seems environment rather than genes comes out on top. But when it comes to other areas like mental illness, where the environment and particularly families have historically been held up as all important, the story's very different.
Well, here we are, sunshine. We've arrived at last, so... Thanks to you. You don't take your directions. I did do my best to get here. You know, I didn't want to get here.
Roger and Robert Perry are taking part in a research programme into mental illness at the Maudsley Hospital in London.
Morning. Good morning. I'm Roger Perry. I'm Robert Perry. We called to see Dr. Sharma.
Right, take a seat. I'll give him a call for you.
There you go.
Robert and Roger worked together as driving instructors for over 20 years.
We were quite a glamorous job in its way. In those days, certainly. With plenty of availability. Yeah, it's more than enough. Quite often, because either we had hangovers or we were double booked, we would change pupils, right? So you'd knock on the door and say, good morning, whoever, and there was not a glimmer of, hello, this is someone different. Not at all. And you'd get in the car and still nothing. And off you'd go. The one problem was, I remember often I'd say, well, I think we'll do a 3-point turn today then. And she'd say, we did that last week. And I'd say, did we? I can't remember that.
The main difference between Roger and Robert is that Roger is a schizophrenic.
The first sign of mental illness was probably about, I would say, 86. So that was, I was 46. And that's when, you know, hearing the voices, people talking about you, and all this business.
I mean, I couldn't do a thing about it. I knew that. I used to talk to Roger. I used to try and reason with Roger. He used to have such fanciful ideas that you just can't reason with them because you just get from one and you go up a dead end.
You see, with Robert, he's so intolerant, you see. He's the worst person in the world to have this by your side when this happens. He doesn't say, well, what bad luck. What the bloody hell are you like that for? Pull yourself together.
Schizophrenia used to be blamed on families. We now know that, like other mental illnesses such as autism or severe depression, schizophrenia is largely a biological disease. But tracking down the affected areas in the brain has proved elusive.
You can see the eyeballs coming out.
Families are not the cause of schizophrenia, they are the victims. The stress it causes can break up even the closest relationships.
Roger wanted to go out of the business. He wanted to just split. And I thought, well, that's strange. You know, we've got on so well. What's the point of that? And so, because I've always thought I was the dominant one, I just said, oh, don't be so bloody stupid. There's no point in that. Didn't listen to him at all.
Well, I thought I was doing more than you were. And I thought, well, I might as well be on my own then.
So,
you know, I mean, it might have been that I suddenly felt that I was had enough of the twin business.
That has allowed us actually to...
By comparing the brains of twins with schizophrenia and without, Dr. Sharma hopes to identify the physical changes in the brain that produce this devastating mental illness. Although he is currently normal, because he has an identical twin with schizophrenia, Robert knows that he himself has a 50-50 chance of becoming schizophrenic.
Brings forth an illness of the mind.
Yeah, sometimes over the last 10 years, I have worried I might get schizophrenia. But the longer it goes on and the longer I feel all right, then there's the less chance I'll get it anyway. But the other thing I feel is that I could deal with it much better knowing what Roger's been through than if I was the first one to have it.
I think I would have rather been Robert than myself, if the truth was known. Yeah, I think. But I didn't get much choice in the matter, so it's no use wishing it. You know, I mean, all twins are going to be different, I suppose, but I don't see much benefit. I really don't. You've got somebody who looks like yourself, and every time you come in, you think, my God, do I look like that on a bad day? And if you don't get on with somebody for any particular reason, it's your own twin brother, you're in lots of trouble. If you never twin in the first place, it wouldn't happen, would it?
Well, that's true, but, you know, can you think back before, again, getting back to the dreaded midlife crisis?
Roger and Robert will probably go on arguing for the rest of their lives.
Well, I didn't have any complaints then, I suppose.
Well, why not? You should have done.
Success in areas like mental illness have encouraged twin researchers to look into an even more controversial area, the genetics of criminality. There's concern about the remorseless rise of violent crime in some areas. people are desperately looking for new answers. Right now, I'm flying over London. It's a big city with a fair amount of crime. Like all big cities, it's got its share of both violent crime and violent criminals. But the intensity of crime varies from area to area. Just now, we're over a smarter part of London. If you were born and brought up here by affluent parents, you'd be very unlikely to end up as a criminal and even less likely to end up in jail. Travel a few miles and the story is very different. A child born and brought up here in one of the rougher parts of the East End of London has very different chances and is much more likely to end up with a criminal record. But is it all down to upbringing, schooling and affluence? Or is there a biological tendency to criminality? Well, the story of the East End's most famous identical twin gangsters is revealing. Reggie and Ronnie Kray carried out some of the most notorious crimes of the 1960s.
They were born into an environment which had an awful lot of crime in it. Although they were very cruel and they were very ruthless and despicable characters in certain ways, but at least they were not giving in. And they weren't giving in to the poverty or the misery or the horrendous nature of East End life at the time. Well, their father was Charlie Kray, and old Charlie was a deserter. He was always on the run from home, and he would appear occasionally. And the twins would always have to pretend that Daddy wasn't there, and they knew exactly how to deal with the law. No respect for it, and it was always the enemy. Partly the fact that they were twins marked them out from other children, certainly. They didn't, I remember one of them saying, of course the Krays never had a proper childhood. They were always watching each other. And they were all self-sufficient. They didn't laugh, they didn't play together. They just worked themselves. They didn't associate with others. So from the start, I think they were marked out from other children. When they became criminals, of course, that marked them out even more.
They seemed naturally aggressive.
Boxing was terribly important to them. I mean, it was one of the few ways, if you were very poor and very tough, of getting to the top out of this terrible heap of poverty in the East End. And they knew a lot of, their heroes were boxers, and they early on started boxing themselves. But of course, if you're a good boxer, you can always also be a good villain. You know, you can beat anyone in a fight. And the temptation was very easy to go from one to the other, as it often did in the East End, and they did. I think the twin thing was what really became their destiny. I think it was what turned them into violent criminals. They were thugs, they were violent, they were fighters. Ronnie was in prison where he'd been in for grievous bodily harm, and while he was in prison, he had really a sort of nervous breakdown. So one afternoon, when visiting time came, Reggie arrived to visit his brother Ron. And he told Ron before to wear a dark blue suit, neatly tied tie, and Reg came in wearing exactly the same. And they stayed and they talked and they smoked cigarettes and they had a cup of tea. When visiting time ended, one of the Kray twins got up, walked out, and then they came and said, well, now Ron, it's time for you to go back to your room. He said, I'm not Ron Kray, I'm Reg. And of course they'd done a switch.
The Krays didn't become criminal simply because of something in their blood. The combined influence of their anti-establishment family, an inherited tendency for impulsive behavior, and the poverty of the East End made them what they were.
The most famous criminal career in Britain since the war depends on this twin bond. And I think without it, it wouldn't have happened.
The fact that the Krays were identical twins and incredibly violent is probably not just a coincidence. There does seem to be a genetic influence for some forms of violent crime, and this may be exaggerated or diminished according to the environment in which one is brought up.
The trouble with using studies on twins to investigate criminality is that twins collude. This causes confusion as to who really did what to whom, as in the case of Fred and Sed.
I was sentenced to 68 years in prison for a crime I never committed.
Fred Young was convicted of an armed robbery on the basis of an eyewitness account.
They felt that I was the one committed the crime because I looked like that person, which is where my twin brother is the one that committed the crimes.
Fred says the robbery was actually carried out by his identical twin brother, Sed, something that Sed denies.
I can honestly say that I didn't commit the crime.
Their mother, Shirley, is convinced that the wrong brother is in jail.
I just really believe that it was Cedric who committed these crimes and not Frederick. And I'm going to always believe that, regardless of what Cedric tell me, I or anybody else. I'm just going to always believe that Fred is innocent.
The twins were born and brought up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, a town of 170,000 people with a very high crime rate. Fred and Sed were always a little on the wild side.
Most police officers got to know them as twins, but they couldn't know them apart. So a lot of them that knew me and knew them would come to me and ask me, well, I don't know which one of the twins did this or which one of them that I talked to, but I'm just talking to you so you can, talk to your son. I said, okay. So when I see both of them, they say, well, it wasn't me, and the other one say, well, it wasn't me. So, but anyway, I just come to talk to both of them anyway. I know it was one of them. The police officer wouldn't tell no story.
It wasn't really bad or anything, It was just like childhood things that kids would normally do. And as we got older, as around to 18, 19, that's when the crimes developed in more harsher things.
Sed was the leader.
I was the first one to start in crime, and he gradually came along because he's more of a laid-back person, and I'm more of an outgoing person.
In 1993, there was an armed robbery in nearby Greensboro. Fred was driving around in his brother Sed's car when he got stopped by the police.
Fred was stopped and they asked him for his driver's license. They stopped him because he had one of his brake lights out. And once they stopped him asking for his ID, and he didn't have it on him, but he gave him Cedric's name, they wanted to search his car.
When they searched the boot of the car, they found a gun used in the robbery. The victim of the robbery also identified Fred from a photo.
And they just showed her my picture, and she said yes. They never told her that I was a twin. They just only told her that they have me in custody.
Unfortunately, the police never took fingerprints from the gun. This is the only way they could have been really certain which twin had used it.
There was no fingerprints taken from the guns. There was no proof whatsoever that he was the person they were looking for.
When I saw Frederick by himself, the expression on his face and the way he was tore up behind being accused of this, I just felt like Frederick was telling the truth.
I hate him at this point, I have no love for him, have none at all. hopefully the truth will come out in court then. And then he would be the one in jail then, you know. And I can go and continue with my life, you know. Well, I'm sure he loves me, and I hope that he knows that I love him. In a situation like this, I know there's anger that he feels towards me because he's in jail for something, you know, that he had no part of. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a twin brother. I really hate being a twin. I really hate it.
People say, oh, if I had twins, oh, I wish I had twins. No, you do not know what you're wishing for. That is a terrible thing to wish for. I mean, especially when they're identical as much as mine, so.
There is no evidence of a gene for criminality, but there is evidence that some types of children are more likely to get into trouble with the law. They're children who from the earliest age are impulsive, reckless risk-takers. Given the right environment, they might end up as successful entrepreneurs. The wrong, and they end up in jail. However often you see them, identical twins never stop being fascinating. We marvel at how alike they look, but it's when you get beneath the skin that things really get interesting. Twin studies have convinced me that we can inherit tendencies, like a tendency to be violent or a tendency to be scared of spiders. But they show us that inheritance isn't everything. What twin studies show is that genes may lay our foundations, but events still shape us. And whatever is true of twins is true for the rest of us.
But I have had a few people come up to me and say, you look like you must be working out more. Have you lost weight, whatever it might be. They know that I look slightly different. There's something, they can't pinpoint it. So I'm not sure. At this point, I think probably down the road 3 or 4 months when our faces do slim out and the swelling goes down, people will notice more.
But we're quick to reply, yes, we've had cosmetic surgery. Yeah, in other words, can't you tell?
Before Suzanne, life was different.
I'm gonna do it, Jack.
That's what you said 10 minutes ago. Then I met her, and suddenly there were 2 women in my life.
It's great with their mates.
Oh, yeah. Don't jump, Jim. Wait till I've called me boss. Plus Suzanne's parents.
He takes her to school, he puts her to bed. It is not natural.
It isn't easy, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Because you're not my real dad, you might find something else.
New drama, Jack of Hearts, starts next Wednesday at 9:30 on BBC One. The patient's choice is simple.
This new heart has got to work, or else it means the patient dies.
That's the chance they take to get to an extension of their life, and they're usually happy to take that.
It's the doctor's choice that's tough.
There are many, many thousands of patients who might benefit from transplantation per year in this country alone, and we only transplant about 250 hearts a year.
Someone is sitting at home tonight who may die in the next week or 2 because I didn't choose him tonight.
Inside Story reveals the truth about transplants. Tomorrow at 10 on BBC One.
Bat in hand, Ruby meets Randy, the king of America's porn industry. Enjoy the last slice of American Pie here on BBC One in half an hour.